All right, let's talk about the tariff tensions between two of the world's biggest players, the United States and India. It's a really interesting story about why two friendly countries got into a trade dispute over things like steel and, well, almonds. So yeah, let's dive right in.
So what's really at the heart of all this? I mean, why the tension between two nations that are, for the most part, major partners? To really get to the bottom of it, we first need to make sure we're all on the same page about one super important word.
And that key term is tariff. Now, I know it sounds a little jargony, but it's actually pretty simple. A tariff is just an extra tax that one country decides to put on stuff being brought in from another country. You can kind of think of it like an entry fee for products that are crossing the border. Okay, so what does a tariff actually do? Well, in a nutshell, it makes imported goods more expensive for you and me. That extra tax, it usually gets passed right along to the person buying the product. So something that cost one price before the tariff suddenly costs more after. The whole point is to make the stuff made right at home look like a better, cheaper deal.
All right, now that we've got that foundation, let's rewind and look at the first move in this big trade chess match. It all really kicked off when the US decided it was time to make a move.
So what was the official reason from the US side of things? Well, the main argument was pretty straightforward. They felt that India's markets were protecting their own industries too much, which they believed made it tough for American companies to compete fairly. And they didn't just talk about it, they took action. The US went ahead and imposed tariffs on some really specific major Indian exports. We're talking about huge industries like steel and aluminum and a bunch of agricultural products too, all of which are pretty vital to India's economy. Now you can probably guess what happened next, right? An action like that is almost guaranteed to cause a reaction. So let's take a look at the countermove from India. India's response used very similar logic, protection, but for their own people. The stated goal for their counter tariffs was crystal clear. They wanted to shield Indian farmers and local businesses from what they saw as the damaging effects of the American tariffs. So, in a direct reply, India put its own tariffs on specific American goods that are really popular over there. We're talking about things like apples, almonds, and walnuts, which, by the way, are huge exports for farmers here in the US. And when you lay it out like this, you can really see that tit-for-tat cycle. The US hits Indian industrial goods, claiming unfair market access. Then India hits back at American farm goods, aiming to protect its own farmers. It's just a classic action-reaction loop, where each move is a direct response to the last one. But look, this story isn't just about conflict. Behind all the headlines, there's actually a constant effort to cooperate. So let's talk about the path that both countries are trying to build to find a solution that works for everyone.
It is so important to remember the bigger picture here. Even with these disagreements, the economic connection between India and the US is just massive. They are still huge trade partners, and that right there is a powerful reason for both sides to work this out.
And that massive shared interest is exactly what's pushing them toward a solution. This isn't just some silent standoff, there are constant negotiations happening. The goal for both isn't to win the fight, but to find a win-win outcome where everybody benefits. Because really, at the end of the day, this isn't just about steel and almonds. The real prize here is getting past this bump in the road to build an even stronger, more robust trade partnership for the future. For two of the world's biggest democracies, that kind of stable economic relationship is a huge strategic win.
And all of this kind of boils down to a much bigger, more thought-provoking question that goes way beyond this one dispute. You know, in our totally interconnected global economy, how does any country strike that perfect balance between protecting its own industries and its own workers while also getting all the incredible benefits that come from free and open trade? That's the real puzzle here, and definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.